What is up, Green Bay Packers fans, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Draft, brought to you by Badger State Brewing in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I am your host, the publisher of Packer Report, Ross Uglem. Very excited to talk to you today about one of the most intriguing prospects in the entire NFL draft and a bonus pick for the Green Bay Packers, which would be Florida State wide receiver / tight end? Question mark? Johnny Wilson. We talked about Keon Coleman already on the show. Johnny Wilson, and what do I mean by bonus pick? So bonus pick, look, there have been times in the past where Green Bay has definitely gone best player available and taken, for example, a great example would be Green Bay had a premium pick in the first round of the, I believe it was 2020 NFL draft, whichever one had Rashawn Gary. Earlier, could be 2019. 2019, 2020 was Jordan Love. 2018 was 2019, Rashawn Gary. So Green Bay goes out in free agency and spends more money than anything we've ever seen in the Ted Thompson era, with Brian Gutekunst signing Adrian Amos, signing Billy Turner, and then signing the Smith brothers and Preston and Zadarius Smith. So you go into the NFL draft and you're thinking, man, they could do a lot of things because they had these needs and they kind of took care of them, which is not a Ted thing to do. He didn't take care of needs in free agency. The Packers go and spend the highest draft pick they've maybe had during the entire Aaron Rodgers era, which is number 12 overall, on a toolsy pass rusher after signing two big-time pass rushers. So Green Bay has done stuff like this before. They have, used bonus picks. They don't just go through their list of players and draft guys at positions of need only. I think that is definitely on the table this year now, though, with 11 total picks and 5 in the first 91. I'm honestly going to be surprised if they don't take somebody in the first 4 rounds where you go, really, that position? And I think that position very well could be wide receiver or tight end. This guy might be a wide receiver and a tight end. We're not real sure. The first thing that jumps out for Johnny Wilson, of course, is just his size. I mean, he is a truly enormous human being. Florida State listed him at 6'7". He measured in at 6'1" and an eighth. So he is, 6'6" and an eighth. So he is 6'6" plus, and then measured in at 237 pounds with an enormous 84 3/8 inch wingspan. It's like a condor. I mean, he's just enormous. He's huge. And he had a really good week in Mobile, which is something that the Packers do care about. They're a big Senior Bowl team. Over and over, Dontavion Wicks comes to mind, but over and over again from last year's class, over and over again, they have shown that they absolutely will, go into Mobile and draft Senior Bowl guys. They've been a big Senior Bowl team, and I don't know that Johnny Wilson will necessarily be the next guy, but it's something that they pay attention to. One thing you see on film that you're going to see with a 6'6" plus guy with a 84 inch wingspan is his catch radius is enormous. He's going to be an inaccurate quarterback's best friend. And sometimes that's Jordan Love down the field, which is where Johnny Wilson does a lot of his work. Sometimes, especially on deep balls, there have been deep balls that like Christian Watson wasn't able to adjust to because they weren't that well thrown. Well, Johnny Wilson has these go gadget arms and this enormous phrase. He makes a wrong quarterback right a lot. And look, Love got better even down the field. He's still one of the more accurate quarterbacks, especially over the second half of the season in the league. But on those occasional misses, Johnny Wilson can make you right. And that's an exciting concept. You go back to the 2022 tape, and we've had, some of these discussions before. It's a big thing for Cameron Kinchens, a safety out of Miami that we discussed not that long ago. Big thing for Jordan Love, big thing for Jaden Reed, big thing for Dontavion Wicks. Go back to the 2022 tape. I know his most recent tape is in 2023, and I'm not saying that's a great thing, but he has got some really, really cool stuff on his 2022 tape. And so that, what are we looking for when we scout players? What can this guy do? Well, Johnny Wilson can play like he did in 2022 because he did it. And that's what the Packers saw in Jordan Love. It's what they saw in Jaden Reed. It's what they saw in Dontavion Wicks. It's what I kind of hope they can see in Cameron Kinchens is he's one of the guys that I'd really like to add to this team. But Johnny Wilson has a very similar thing. Go back to the 2022 tape It's better than the 2023 stuff, and it shows what he can do. And that's ultimately what matters, guys. That's what matters when scouting players is what can you do. Don't tell me what he can't do. Don't run him down. If there's too much stuff that he can't do, fine, we won't take him. But if he can win, that's what we care about. You move him around the formation, played some slot, can definitely play the X, and I think can play kind of what a move tight end would be, like a Jared Everett, like a Mark Andrews, those types of guys, and how they're used. Ultimately, though, I don't think you want him playing any inline. We'll talk about that, but I think the way that teams utilize their tight ends that they do move around the formation is a similar way that you can use Johnny Wilson, in that you're going to get to a point where nickels are too small to cover him. Safeties might be too slow, as would linebackers. He'd be kind of a weird matchup for you. I think, especially if he's able to box out some of these smaller nickel backs in some possession situations or some seam situations, I think he could be tough. Tough to defend, tough to match up with. High level. And Matt LaFleur will love this, and why I think there's a sneaky chance that Johnny Wilson might become a Green Bay Packer. High level run blocker, gets after guys. And look, if you're going to play a guy, and they played him outside. If you're going to play somebody who's 6'6" plus and darn near 240 at wide receiver, he better be able to block, 5'11", 185-pound corners. Okay. He better get after their ass. But I mean, he did. And that shows up on tape. It's real. And I think it lends to the idea that he could be somewhat of a hybrid player, be some of a big slot. He plays some H-back. I don't think that you want him head up on a 6 technique defensive end trying to actually play like Y, but he has the other capabilities of like a super Lazard. And we talked about that with Keon Coleman. But this could really be more super Lazard in like the way that the Packers actually used Allen Lazard. He's got surprising short area quickness on film for a person that big. I won't be surprised if his agility is impressive for Indy, especially once they're weighted for his height and weight. I would not be super surprised if Johnny Wilson ends up with a good RAS, even with some maybe like not elite raw numbers. But once you take his numbers and plug in 6'6" and an eighth and 237 pounds, those numbers become more impressive than if you were like Greg Jennings size or Devontae Adams size. Okay, he's a huge dude. Cons, what will we not like about Johnny Wilson? Why did he take a step back in 2023? For most of the season, they had a very, very good football team. Jordan Travis was playing well at the quarterback position. In theory, they did a better job of having someone opposite him and Keon Coleman, another guy that we've talked about on this show. So why the step back in 2023? Why was he not playing as well? That's, I think, a question that you'd want answered. Separation is a real question, especially vertically. Anytime you're 6'7", 240, your ability to moss people or your ability to make contested catches down the field or in the red zone area or even on third down is going to be a strength. But if you can never separate, that's a hard way to win consistently at the NFL level. Even if you are, what he would be in Green Bay right away would be wide receiver 5. So even if you are wide receiver 5, it's a hard life to consistently have to win contested catches. You would like to be able to get open. And I'm not saying he can't, but it's a real question. It's something that, a lot of his catches at Florida State are with someone draped all over him. And that means he didn't get open. If he had separation, the guy wouldn't be draped all over him. So sometimes you appreciate his ability to make contested catches. Sometimes you wonder, dude, why weren't you open? I'm not a big drop rate guy. I've got my Christian Watson upside down homage t-shirt, shout out homage. I got my Christian Watson bobblehead here. Obviously wasn't a big deal there for me. I wouldn't worry about him doing that. Jordy Nelson dropped the ball. James Jones dropped the ball. Devontae Adams dropped the ball so much people thought Jeff Janis was better than him. I'm just not worried about it. Okay, I'm not. Long term, we've talked about this with other guys. If you have a wide receiver that is a bad drop guy in the NFL, you might drop 9 balls, maybe 10. And if you got like a super, super sure-handed wide receiver, even a really, really good one, still might drop 3 or 4 balls. So it's the difference between 3 drops and 9 drops over the course of an 18-week season going to completely move me off a prospect? It's absolutely not. They're just not that important. And by the way, sometimes they go away. Sometimes they go away. Christian, I'd have to take a quick look here. This is phenomenal video and radio for all you guys. Christian and obviously I understand that, he was limited in the amount of snaps and the amount of games that he was available, what have you. But you look at him last year, and he had 2 drops. He had 2 drops on 56 targets. So I don't know that they absolutely went away, but not that big of a deal. Not that big of a deal. 6.3% drop rate is low. Okay. They went away for Jordy Nelson, became a true possession wide receiver. I would say they've gone away for Devontae Adams. I don't know if they ever really totally went away for James Jones, but he led the league in touchdowns. Like, it's just not that big of a deal. Why am I saying all this? Because, my God, that drop rate is concerning for Johnny Wilson. It just is. I'll look it up here really quick because I didn't actually write the number down on my sheet, but I should have because it wasn't good. His drop rate last year was 11%, and his career drop rate is 12.8%. Low-lighted, if you will, his last year at Arizona State, he had a 20% drop rate. That is not good. And if he's going to be a guy who doesn't separate, and there's some crazy stat here about his receptions last year. So he caught 41 balls, and 31 of them went for a first down, and 2 of them went for a touchdown. So 33 of his 41 catches either went for a first down or a touchdown. That's what he is. But you can't be that in the NFL if you can't catch the ball. And that has to get fixed. Has to get fixed. I think it can. I think the Packers have done a good job with guys and shown that they can get that stuff fixed. And also the Packers have shown that they just don't care. And they obviously probably care a little bit. But ultimately, you look at a Jordy Nelson, you look at a Devontae Adams, they'll take guys who drop the ball. You look at a Christian Watson, they will take guys who drop the ball and just hope it goes away. And honestly, it kind of has. Yak, not that much of a thing at the NFL level. I don't think it projects to be much of a thing with Johnny Wilson at the NFL level. He doesn't make anyone miss, and I think he'll break fewer tackles in the big time at the NFL level. Most of him getting past a defender is running through them. And look, if you come at him with a 5'11" free safety that weighs $190, he might run him over. But ultimately very little like wiggle in the open field. And I wonder just how much his yak ability will translate at the NFL level. And again, I keep going to like this idea of Super Lazard. I think that could be how Green Bay ends up using him. Lazard, I think there was maybe one kind of long yak play to set up a game-winning field goal that I can remember off the top of my head, but that was more like I'm open and I'm running. Like Lazard didn't make a play with the ball in his hands. It just wasn't who he was as a football player. The one other con that I will say I noticed and wrote down here is he does not beat press coverage in the way that you would think that a 6'6" plus 237-pound wide receiver would. I would like him to be better against press. There is no reason that these guys that are giving up 40 pounds to him can press him up the way that they can. And then just in general, too, the Packers have liked productive wide receivers. No 1,000-yard season for Johnny Wilson. I wonder if that's something that they care about. Christian Watson didn't have one, but Christian Watson came from a Super Bowl control offense, pro-style offense, where they were winning national championships running the ball 58 times a game, and they didn't need to throw it. Johnny Wilson, they threw it plenty. You can go look at the overall stats, run, pass, and I think they certainly would have liked more production than the 41 catches from this year over the 43 catches from a year ago. But as I mentioned, the 2022 tape, certainly more fun than 2023. Packers fit. We've talked about building out this group like a basketball team. You got your point guard in Jayden Reed. You got your wings in Romeo Doubs and Dontavion Wicks, and certainly in Christian Watson. And then your power forward, who's your big man? Who's your red zone threat? Who's your 3rd and 6? Got to have it. Let me just box somebody out here real quick, guy. Could be Johnny Wilson. And that's how I think he would fit on the Packers. I got to watch and see kind of what he does, though, at the combine, because if you're going to be wide receiver 5, you kind of have to play special teams. Can he? I think that's debatable. You're certainly not going to, everything that's gone on trying to keep Christian Watson healthy. You're not going to have him running down on teams. Jaden Reed's not running down on teams. Dontavion Wicks is not running down on teams. So that's a interesting one for me. I got to see him test. I don't know how much, I guess I can look here. I mean, not a guy that ran down on teams much, if at all, for his college squads. So not experience that he has. And he was a featured receiver when he was at Arizona State and Florida State. So it's not surprising they didn't have him running down, but it'd be new for him. I think he'll be their jump ball monster. Again, like we said, Jay Love, not always perfect on the deep ball. He can make a wrong throw right. He could probably grab some of those that Christian wasn't quite able to get to with his Go Gadget arms. Truly unique in what he brings to the table. I think he's different than Kraft. You're talking about building out guy. How do they win differently? What's different about a Johnny Wilson as opposed to, a number of the guys that the Packers have? I think there's definitely some differences in the way that he wins. I don't think he's quite like Kraft or Musgrave, and I think he's different than all the four, main wide receivers that they would use. I think, again, jump ball guy, possession guy, box you out guy, first down guy. I mean, that's what he does, right? Is he converts the money down. I see him winning a different way. I see him winning a different way than the four primary receivers that they have and the two tight ends. And so that's great. That's, it's a putty for a craftsman like Matt LaFleur to just give him more options. And I think he could be the one receiver, and I don't know because I have a higher grade on him than this, but I've seen him lower. I've seen him in different spots. The Packers are so good at wide receiver that I've basically said after you get past the second round, just don't take one. Just don't take one unless he has a specific special teams function. I don't need anybody other than Bo Melton and Malik Heath. And then if you're talking about wide receiver 7, I'm very fine with Grant Dubose. Not even going to keep 8. You're not going to probably even keep 7. Once you get past a certain point, they're not going to make the team anyway because they're not going to beat out Melton, Heath, and Dubose. Johnny Wilson could be the 1 3rd-round guy if he were to last to win Green Bay picks at 88 and 91 that could actually make sense and could actually make, be a perfect fit into the roster. Overall grade. I think the combine will say a lot about how he could help at the NFL level. If he's a plotter, if he runs a 4.65, it's a problem. Okay. And he's probably going to be a 3rd or a 4th round pick. He's probably not going to be a Green Bay Packer. But if he runs okay, if he shows the change of direction that I see on film, might be a 2nd round guy and might be gone. And so that could kind of vault him up where if they start to see traitsy stuff, then they'll start talking themselves verbally past some of the lack of productivity, lack of box score stuff. If he shows himself to be super traitsy at the NFL Combine, for me, he has got a late round 2 grade. I will not be surprised if he's a 3rd round pick though. And for me, he's player number 56 overall. Guys, thanks so much for listening. If you're on the podcast side or if you're watching this on YouTube, we appreciate you very much as well. You can follow me. I'm at Ross Uglem on X or Twitter. You can check us out on Packer Report. We got awesome stuff coming every day. That first month, if you want to try us out at the VIP level, is $1. And it's a great way to support me and my team. We would really appreciate it. Buy the Green Bay Draft Guide powered by Packer Report. We've got a 10% off promo code DAILY, DAILY. The link for that should be right here in the video or in the podcast description. And that code will get you 10% off of an awesome guide coming out on April 8th. Do everything you're supposed to do here as well. Like, subscribe, click the bell, get the notifications so you can get all of the Pack-A-Day podcast that you require. Have a phenomenal rest of your day, guys, and go Pack Go.